Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining this session. Today, we'll discuss how to master the art of a value proposition and how you can create a compelling value proposition that closes deals and not just is nice to look at, but really makes an impact. The reason why we're doing that is that we see that in B2B context, only 20 to 30% of B2B proposals win, that you have an average of 4 to 20 stakeholders related to any kind of purchase, and that a lot of deals end in no decision. And so despite our best effort to sell our offering and to do our best to get the deal signed and to have some new customers, it is a very hard environment. And my goal is really to provide you a framework and the tools that will help you actually to increase your close rate. So who am I? My name is Sultan. I am the founder of Value Coach, and I'm also director of value consulting at a digital experience platform company called Sitecore. I bring about 20 plus year experience in global tech companies, in SaaS companies, mainly around sales and marketing. And my specialty and my goal is really to help clients get their initiatives funded and started. Because we all know that despite our best effort, customers want to do something, but unfortunately, it's very hard to get a buy-in from their management. And so that's really my specialty, and I really want to share some of those best practices with you today. So we'll do three things today. We'll discuss why proposals fail and the reality of B2B, and discuss contract versus proposals, the stakeholder, and the entire environment. We'll talk about the vision framework that I developed, and we'll discuss the takeaways and share with you some tools that you can leverage as part of that. So let's start at the start. Why most proposals fail to close? As I was mentioning earlier, you have a lot of proposals that don't win, 20% of them only close. You have a lot of stakeholders. Whenever you sell something in a complex sale, especially, you need to deal with multiple stakeholders. You have the business, you have IT, you might have security, legal, compliance, and so on. And everyone has their say and everyone has an opinion and needs to be heard. It's really part of the deal, and they need to be taken along the journey. And unfortunately, most of the opportunities that we see end in no decision because the status quo wins. There's a great quote coming from a book, Jolt, that I have here behind me, which is here, The Jolt Effect, that speaks about the FOMO, and that's the fear of messing up. And what we see is that a lot of people in organizations are afraid to make a decision because they are concerned of risking their career. And so if you want to make a compelling proposal, it's really about them. And unfortunately, we see in many cases that it's all about us, about my company, about how amazing we are, how many customers we have, and look at our beautiful office. Nobody cares. It's focusing on one person instead of the full committee. There is no talk about ROI except some numbers hidden somewhere. We don't talk about objections, and there are no clear next steps. And so what the ideal proposal will do will really be able to speak to every single stakeholder based on their needs, having a strong, credible business case that is vetted by the client, discussing alternatives, because there are always alternatives in the market, and really discuss the objections and be proactive about any kind of blockers that could happen. And so one of the questions might be, do I actually need a proposal? Do I actually need to create a proposal? And the answer is no. You can do two things when you're in a sales environment. You can put in front of your customer a contract, or you can put a proposal. The contract is usually what we get when we go to a retail shop, or they come door to sell you a new energy contract or mobile contract or something like that. It's usually a decision you can make by yourself. And in B2B sales, sometimes you can really just push a contract below someone's nose. They're interested and they want to start tomorrow. Let's set up a contract. It works when you have only one decision maker that already made the decision. We have some clear commercial terms, price, scope, timeline, and it's pretty clear to manage that. Fortunately, if you're in sales, it's usually it's a longer process. And so you need to go through the value proposition or proposal stage. When you need multiple stakeholders to be convinced, you need to build consensus, justify the investment, accelerate a decision, and really align and show what will be the value that we'll get out of it. So the best way to look at it is that a proposal, a value proposition, is a tool that will help customer make a decision that should make their decision easier to make because you'll give them all the arguments to make it. And that will have to address a lot of the challenges, but also be able to touch the emotional and the rational aspect because people will buy for emotional reason, but justify it rationally. And so we need to be able to capture that as well. So the first letter, the V from vision, stands for vision. That makes it pretty easy. And what it says that what you want to do is chart the course toward the future. And so one of the questions we ask, or I ask, is usually if you could have a magic wand and solve everything perfectly, what would success look like in 3 years? This helps to look differently at the situation and to open up opportunities into their mind and look beyond what your pure product is trying to solve, but looking beyond that. And then when you manage the conversation, it's really about mirroring the language. So what great salespeople do is that they will use phrases that they hear from the customer. So if the customer tells them, we are frustrated with the way our product is working, you cannot say, oh, are you angry about your product? No, you really need to be reusing their words. It sounds really strange to do, but it really helps to build a better connection and make sure that we clearly understand each other and clarify what we're talking about. It needs to be strategic. So try to look at 3, 5 years and try to map that as a strategic goal. And that's because your clients will be buying a transformation, not a product. They want to buy an outcome. And that's really why they sit at the table with you. And then it's also about understanding who are the stakeholders, who are all the people involved. I've been in many meetings where the client didn't know actually all the key stakeholders, they just knew a few. And so what we are doing there is try to map that together with them. And then based on your experience, you can also suggest, based on my experience, I know that we probably need someone from security to be involved and to look at it. And so this might help them also to understand which are the stakeholder to take. And so that gives you a stakeholder map, looking at the CEO, the exec sponsor, might be someone else, might be a CMO, someone else, and they'll probably have different criteria of success than the other stakeholder in the business. So the CEO might be looking at market leadership, the CFO would be about cost control, maybe a risk reduction or profitability, COO around operations, what is the efficiency, scalability, and the IT might be around integration, security, and future-proofing the infrastructure. When we know where they want to go, then we can really discuss about the next point, which are the issues. What is blocking them from getting there? And that's the I in the first I in vision, issues. And so what we do is really name the pain in their words. And as I was mentioning, it's really, if they say our onboarding takes forever, just write that. And as part of your proposal, you will use the exact word as what they say. And what I usually do is say, what we heard from you, using their words. But then you need to go one step further, is what is the ripple effect? What is the business outcome of that onboarding that takes forever? So if that onboarding takes forever, it has an impact on maybe customer churn. Customers think that it takes too much time and then they abandon, that are using the platform. It might be that some of your employees will be frustrated, so they will talent with frustrated, some revenue lost. And then ideally, as part of your preparation, you need to do your homework and knowing where your solution plays a role. So depending on where it plays an impact and knowing what can be the pain, if you can already have some benchmarks showcasing that an average an onboarding for a new client in your industry is 5 days, and they get automated communications from the system, and we have a regular call with our clients from a customer success management. If you can provide that input and compare their notes then you show that you are a credible partner that is looking there to help them. And again, if you go back to the stakeholder, we need to map that to the CFO and what is the ripple effect for them. So it's going to be rising operational costs with no visibility into waste. The head of sales might be the onboarding takes so much time that my reps, instead of selling, are doing customer support. HR might say people are unhappy and they're leaving the company. And from IT, it might be technical debt from different systems. And so when you have that, you can really start building one of the key elements, which is the cost of inaction. We said that 40 to 60% of deals end up in no decision. If you can quantify the cost of inaction and the cost of doing nothing, you can actually build some urgency. And so instead of saying, we'll do a better onboarding, what we can say now is every month that we are delaying improving, that has an impact of 2% on our churn. And if you can reduce those 50% by 50%, and so get churn to 1%, that's a real number. And that will get people to move. But unfortunately, you're not the only one in the world. There are multiple ways to get to Rome. And when you present your solution, it's really important to showcase that you know that you're not the only one, but that you are realistic about it. And so what I really advise is to show 2 or 3 alternatives, including the do nothing, when you are presenting your solution. And it shows that you are not just there selling only your solution and I'm the only one that can save the world, but that there are different options, but I'm probably the better one. So it could look like this, saying, okay, look, you have the problem right now. We can stay in the status quo, do nothing. You will not need to implement, do some change, but the problem will continue to amount and it will compound. You will lose competitive ground every quarter. You will not see improvement to your team productivity and maybe even to team morale. One of the alternatives is to build in-house. You could say, we can build it ourselves. Clients, you can build the solution yourself. That means that your team will be working on it, maybe 12 or 18 months. With vibe coding, it might be fast, but at the end of the day, what they get with might be some technical debt. It might be important to showcase that, showing that whatever you're doing, it has an impact. And that the engineer that will be doing that will be distracted from doing something else. And they will still maintain a high cost. While your solution might be able to solve the number one problem that we discussed as part of the issues, you can showcase some ROI, ideally in the industry vertical or in other area. You can show fast time to value and a full integration with a stack, for example. And so you see what we are doing here is really showcasing the 3 differences, really showing that our solution is the best. From a presentation perspective, sometimes we present your solution in the middle. That's a matter of choice. That would be a way to look at it. And then we need to talk about the impact to make sure that the value is impossible to ignore. And so what I like to do is start with the strategic impact. So what does that mean from a strategic perspective to start working with us? What will that mean from a market position, from an innovation perspective, from a risk reduction perspective? Then I like to look at some of the financial impact. What will be the impact on revenue, on cost, and the ROI payback periods around that? So we could say that based on their numbers, if they can increase the velocity of their pipeline, they could generate some additional revenue, or they can reduce the work in manual processing, which would equal an amount in euro and dollar per year. But there is also the efficiency gain. And so looking at if their sales reps spend a lot of time supporting clients, spending 6 hours per week on admin, if you can allow them to save that time, that's more selling time, for example. But I think it's really good to, when we are working on business case, is really to work closely with a client and bring some assumptions and get them to fill those numbers in. If they fill those numbers in, the numbers become their numbers, it becomes their business case, and they buy into it. And then we can have a high level number looking at what would be the ROI, payback periods, net present value, or win rate improvement. Quickly looking at questions now. And then the next thing is not everything is beautiful and shiny and amazing. There are always problems along the way, and you will always have objections. And so you always need to be proactive about objections. Because in my experience, there's a better way to do it. And usually I present the three top objectives in writing as part of the proposal because it shows confidence, it builds trust, and it shows that you thought about it and that you have experience to make sure that you take away the emotional charge from the objections. And so it could be around investments. This is too expensive. Then, of course, you can talk about those costs as an investment, and you started to work on the impact and a business case and show them that these are the numbers. There might be concern about change management. Our team want to adopt this. In that case, you can, as part of your story, say, to make sure that you get a great onboarding, this is our methodology, this is how we are doing it, and this is how we ensure the change management for your team. And maybe reference a customer that has similar story that makes it easier. And then there might be some technical integration fears. So will this work with our system? And in that case, again, be proactive, share your API compatibility, security requirements, integration stack record, and so on. And make sure that you have a technical team that can, for example, address the security review questions. So what we are doing here is instead of just throwing a price over the fence and telling them, look, it's going to be amazing, it's going to be unicorns and sunshine, we show that, look, this is where you want to go, this is going to be the impact, and these are the risks that we've taken into consideration, and we show you how we plan to address those challenges that you might face. And finally, probably the most common error that I see is that you miss next steps. There, we present something, we say, I'll call you next week. And that's week. What you want to do, you want to be able to agree with a customer. These are the next steps. So look, we know that you want to address that onboarding problem. And what do we need to do to have it solved by May 1st? And so when we agree on a date, then you can build what we call a joint success plan. And a joint success plan is between the go live and success date until now. And you do that retro planning to know who does what, who owns what, and when are we doing what. And that really transform your proposal from a pitch to a partnership document. So you agree on a deal, you name owners on both sides of the organization. So the client, yourself, you set decision dates, very clear. And then you also show value in the first 90 days or whenever you want to put a timeline. But I think it's really important to, again, from the realization point of view, get some clear dates on both sides. And that's a plan that can change. Of course, life happens, things happen, but it's very clear to make sure that there are no ambiguity between the different participants. There are a lot of mistakes that I'm seeing, but I think the two main ones that I'd like to highlight is that it's all about them. So it's always about their situation. And so the statement that you will do will be about your organization, your challenges, and your goals. And the second one that is critical is really to think broader than purely the champion. We usually deal with someone that is bought into what we can provide, but we must not fall into that. I had many cases where we have deals that are progressing well, and then our champion, the person that we have been in contact over the last months, got a new job, got fired, or anything else happens. And then your project falls flat. And that's why you really need to think about your stakeholders and everything and all the people that are important to that project. So if you make a proposal, here's your vision checklist. I would say run through every letter. So start with V, have I articulate their vision in their own words so that they feel that you understand them. Have I named and quantified every major issues? And that's not something you do in one time, that's something that happens over multiple times, but it's really important to keep that sharp. Then solution, does my solution clearly outperform the alternatives? Can I show that based on the 3 different options, 4 different options, I'm providing the best solution? Or impact, is my ROI calculation specific and credible? Are they buying into the business case, using their numbers? is that their business case? O, have we discussed the top 3 objections and have we make sure that we preempted them, make sure that all the concerns have been addressed? And next steps, do we have a clear dated joint success plan to make sure that we map that together? So using that framework, you can really create compelling value propositions that not only will help you to showcase your value, but will really help you to accelerate deals by addressing the challenges around not specific to the client, not addressing all the stakeholder concern, not being able to show the value, and to study from a timeline perspective. And that's really where the vision framework can really help you. One last thing, I have developed a GPT that helps you to build a point of view that can help you actually build that whole narrative for your first meeting. So I'll share that with you after the call so you can play with it. And the way it works is you will just provide your company, the products you're offering, your target audience, and we'll start building that narrative on why actually your client should partner with you. So I was wondering, which questions do you have? You can drop them in the chat if you want. So if you have no questions, I really want to thank you for being here today. I'll share after the session, I'll drop each one of you an email with some of the resources. It's been a pleasure being there, and I wish you the best. If you connect with me, my email address is sultan@value-coach.com. Really happy to help. Have a great day. Bye-bye.